I was injured for 4 years straight. In 2019, I ran my first marathon, and to everyone's surprise, including my own, I won it. I ran a 3:05 on a hilly course in Norway, and I was hooked. I trained harder, I ran more, I doubled down on the mindset that more equals better. And in just 7 months, I dropped nearly 20 minutes, and I ran a 2:46 marathon in Florence. And I thought that I'd cracked the code. But then the injuries started. Stress fracture after stress fracture. And every 6 months, like clockwork. And despite doing less, despite being careful, the cycle just continued. Fast forward, today, since 2023, I've been completely injury-free. And I believe that the secret sauce that I was missing, the thing that most runners, most athletes, and honestly most people struggle with when chasing any goal is patience. So the downside of being too driven. I've always considered myself a determined person. I thought my success came from this relentless drive. In high school, I was sailing competitively while juggling academics at a top-tier school. Most of my sailing friends went to specialized schools that made it easier to pursue their sport. I, on the other hand, wanted to do it all. So I needed to get straight A's, I needed to get into an Ivy League school, have a social life, and still train. I would go out on a Friday night, wake up at 6 a.m. on Saturday, hungover, but pretending I was fine, and then sail all weekend. I'd pull all-nighters for exams, I pushed myself in honestly every area of life, and looking back, I was just exhausted. And here's the thing, I thought that this was just being ambitious. But what I've realized is that this constant drive, this need to do more, was actually holding me back. This cycle of overdoing and crashing. So when you cram in as much work as possible, as many miles, as many obligations as possible, you fall into this vicious cycle, which was what I was in. Hyperproductive, then you crash, then you're hyperproductive, then you crash. And at first it feels like you're getting ahead, but in reality, you're slowing down your progress because every crash sets you back. And for someone who's ambitious, that's really frustrating. It feels like a failure. So the signs of patience and endurance training. Adaptation takes time. The body takes weeks, months, even years to fully adapt to training loads. And your cardiovascular system improves at first, but your bones, your tendons, and ligaments, they take longer. And this is exactly what I experienced. And this is why runners often get injured when they increase their training too quickly. So the power of consistency. We all know, right, how important consistency is. Or you want to make small, sustainable efforts over time because that leads to breakthroughs. But if you're constantly sidelined due to injury, you never allow your body to fully develop resilience. And I want to touch on the neuroscience of patience and goal achievement. I'm not going to, be all like too sciencey, but the brain operates on dopamine feedback loops. So if you rely only on short-term wins, you get addicted to quick progress, but you struggle to stick to a long-term process. So patience helps build intrinsic motivation, leading to lasting success, which is what we all want, right? So a common mistake runners make is that they lack this patience. They are chasing these quick results, increasing mileage too quickly, doing speed work before building a strong base, and expecting personal best in every race. So another mistake that runners do is that they compare to others. So you're seeing other people's workouts or race times on Strava or Instagram, and you're feeling this need to do more instead of trusting your own plan. Also, a mistake that runners make is not listening to your body. So you're pushing through pain or fatigue without realizing that the setbacks often stem from impatience. And then there's the classic trap of adding more volume without proper recovery, leading to overtraining and burnout. So how do we fix these common mistakes? It all comes down to patience and trust. But I get it. How can we trust the process if we don't even know if we'll reach our goals? And the answer? A strategy. So you want a plan that allows you to measure progress. And one of the mistakes that I made was assuming that simply having a coach was enough. I honestly spent too long of a time working with coaches who weren't moving the needle towards my goals. I also didn't have my priorities in check. I was trying to do everything, like I talked about in the beginning of this video. At a point, I was working for a startup in Norway, I was coaching at a gym and applying for an MBA program in the US, all while chasing my goal of running in the Olympics. And then while I was getting my MBA, I started a business, I continued training at an elite level, and I treated social media as a side project. And looking back, I was spreading myself too thin. And instead of making true progress, I was constantly juggling too many things, leaving no room for strategic focus. If you're serious about long-term success, you have to be intentional about where your time and energy go. If running is your goal, that should be the number one focus and not everything else. And I know that for most of you, running is not going to be your number one thing, but I do want you to really think about how important is it for you to reach your running goals and realize how that might need prioritizing other things in your life less to give yourself enough time to, recover and really have quality sessions. And then I want you to ask yourself, are the things you're doing now actually working? So do you have a way to measure progress? That's why I have my athletes race frequently. So I recommend doing a 3 to a 10K every month or two because we need those checkpoints to track whether our training is working. And you can also measure progress through how much time you're running and how much of that time is spent at threshold, tempo, or speed workouts. Truthfully, my goal isn't to get in peak shape or as fast as possible. I've done that before. I know that I can drop those 19 minutes from my marathon time, but I also know that rapid progress often leads to injuries and setbacks. So my real goal is to become a strong, consistent, high-performing marathoner, and that requires absorbing high mileage and long threshold sessions without injury or burnout over time. So stacking solid training weeks over time. How to build patience and trust the process. So 1, you want to set long-term goals. You want to think in years, not weeks. Great runners aren't built in a season. 2, you want to track progress the right way. So instead of fixating on speed or race time, you want to look at the pace increasing at the same heart rate at the same week, meaning you want to compare a hard week to a hard week and an easy week to an easy week. And you want to look at the total time spent running and total time spent at threshold. 3, you want to embrace slow progress. Sometimes what you think is a plateau means your body is absorbing the training. So trust that steady progress leads to breakthroughs. 4, you want to incorporate deload weeks and rest days. I talk about deload weeks a lot on my channel, and that's because more isn't always better. Recovery is where improvement happens. 5, you want to surround yourself with the right people. Having a coach or a team that prioritizes long-term development instead of quick fixes is key. So finding coaches who work well with your personality. For me, I realized that I like accuracy, not just going off field, because I'm someone who always wants to push myself. So my perception of how something feels was often skewed. And I needed a training method and a coach that gave me precise targets. I do really well with following instructions, but where my perception did not get in the way. And that's why heart rate was great, because if I targeted pace, I would tell my coach I felt good and keep pushing those paces. So you want to find your type of person. And now I want to tell you all what happened when I became more patient. What I do differently now is that I'm gradually increasing my mileage. I am better at listening to my body. I'm focusing on my long-term sustainability in the sport instead of just the next race. And what has this done for me? I have been injury-free since 2023. I am feeling stronger. I am improving. Again, not like from race to race, but overall I'm improving. And that's what I'm loving the most. And it's also really cool that through feeling better and stronger, I've also gone from a 130 half marathon to 125. And I've gone from 40 miles per week to 85 miles. So it's not to say that this doesn't lead to faster times. It really does. It's just, again, a long-term investment. And how you can apply this to your own running is that you can build a plan, trust the process, and recognize that the greatest runners are the ones who stay in the game the longest. So to conclude, patience is the most underrated endurance skill in my opinion. And if this resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Have you ever struggled with patience in your training? If you don't usually comment, I would really love if we all could just share our stories and help each other out. I think that if we all understand that most of us have the same problems, it's just so much more motivating. Subscribe if you want to follow my journey towards the Olympics and learn more about heart rate training and feeling good while pursuing your potential. And if you're curious what happened when I quit alcohol for a year, then check out this video right here. Thank you so much for watching.